now?
Oh yeah, I can now.
You can see me now,
Hello.
right?
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm all right.
First of all, I would like to thank you for doing this. It really means a lot to me.
It's not a problem.
Yeah, but I really want to tell this to you that a person of your stature, and you have given me this opportunity to host you. It really means a lot to me. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm not quite sure what you mean by stature, but it's a pleasure to do it anyway.
You have way more experience than me, and you've worked a lot. So in that regard, I was saying that I would like to start with a quote that Dazed and Confused magazine wrote about you in their magazine. There's a strong punch of raw emotion that separates Brett Walker's body of work from his contemporaries. When its left hook hits you in full force, it leaves you disoriented. Amazing.
Yeah.
How does it feel to get such praises for your work?
How does it feel? I really don't pay very much attention to either compliments or to criticism particularly. I think that if you, just for example, with the comments in a picture you put up, it's kind of like if someone says, "Oh, great picture," you kind of go, "Yeah, that was a great picture." But if someone says, "Nah, it's a bit rubbish," you're like, "Oh, let me see your pictures. I hate you." It can drive you crazy. So
it can ruin your day, I guess. It can ruin your day.
It can ruin mine. I'm incredibly thin-skinned, so I'm not very good at kind of.
So you don't bother about the praises and the hate that comes with.
Obviously, I prefer the praise a little bit.
Sure.
But people can say what they're going to say. I say lots of horrible things about people's pictures.
Right.
So it's okay. It's all part of it.
Yeah. So no problem. So actually, I was researching about you. I was researching your website as well. So I got to know something about you that at age 15, you left school and you shifted to Japan, right?
I left school at 15. I did a few little jobs after I left school before I went to Japan. I was 16 when I went to Japan. It was a little bit later, yeah.
Yeah. So is there a particular reason for shifting to Japan, or it was just a random choice?
It wasn't necessarily a random choice. I think when I was a teenager, it had crossed my mind how similar Japan was in terms of it being an island like we were, and how completely and utterly different it was. So it looked kind of interesting to me. And an opportunity kind of came up where if I sold a few bits and pieces, I could get on an airplane and go to the other side of the planet, as far away from where I grew up as I could possibly be. And it was, okay, let's do it. Let's give it a go. When you're young, you don't really think about consequences.
Yeah. So basically it was just exploration, right? You just wanted to explore.
Pretty much. Yeah. I thought I'll go to the other side of the world and make my way back.
And how does that changes you? When you shifted your geographical location from one place to another, how does the mindset of a 15-year-old kid changed at that time? The way you saw the world around you?
I think that as a 15-year-old, you're very susceptible to influence.
Right, exactly.
Wherever you are.
Right.
Whether you're in a 15-year-old Palestinian boy, yes, you're going to throw stones. If you're a 15-year-old living on a council estate where there's lots of bad things going on, you may be influenced to do those things. I found myself in a country that was so completely and utterly different from anything that I'd ever known. I went to a place where there was I was terrified before I went there, and suddenly found myself in a place with absolutely no crime.
Right. Oh, yes. Okay.
None.
That's interesting.
You could go walk anywhere and there was no crime. And this was the first city I'd really been to, apart from my hometown. And cities always equated to crime and danger and kidnapping and death and all of the stories that people tell you about the city. I got to a city that was completely different in every way. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anything. And the one thing that I was meant to be afraid of didn't exist.
Right.
So that changed my mind about everything, really.
Okay, great. And at age 18, you become a professional photographer. And
Not exactly. At 18, I didn't become a professional photographer. At 18, I started working for big photographers.
okay, so you were basically, yeah.
It wasn't really until I was 22 that people were paying me to take photographs.
Yeah. So age 22, you were titled as Tokyo's first European photographer, right?
The first one who made a living.
Right,
I was very lucky. The timing was very good for me. It was the beginning. It was the beginning to the middle of the 80s.
Right.
They were looking at London a lot for inspiration in Japan. They had lots of money.
Right.
It was a very exciting time to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was much easier for me at that point to get work every day. If I'd been there 4 years later or 4 years earlier, I probably wouldn't have worked. So it was very much to do with timing.
Right. So basically,
really
what kind of work you used to do? Like what kind of photography work?
All fashion.
Everything fashion, everything related to fashion.
Everything was fashion and advertising.
And was you liking it? Like, were you in love?
No, I didn't. I liked the money.
Right.
I liked the power that comes with being the boss of
Sure.
a dozen people in a studio.
Right.
I liked the girls that I got to work with. But I didn't like the business. I didn't like the people who aspired to be in that business. I didn't care about fashion. It wasn't something that, the only fashion I cared about was what am I going to wear today?
Sure.
I don't really care about your fashion world. I don't really care about your pretensions. I don't care about your Gucci, your Armani. I don't care about any of those things. I think it's ridiculous to spend that much money on clothes.
That's true.
When they're being made for pennies in third world countries.
Right.
I don't really like it. I didn't like the way models were treated. I didn't like the things they had to do in order to get up the ladder in the business. I saw it happening all the time. I got to a point where I just didn't really want to do that anymore.
Exactly. So basically, this is something that, I can relate with as well, because my thinking is also like same. I also think like, along the same lines. So I can very much relate to that. And I was also like, I also read that you left Japan because you disliked the values that they were like, that they were putting out in the fashion world. So what were the issues exactly? What were exactly the issues?
What were exactly the issues? The issues were being with a group of people who considered themselves to be artists, when their job was to take a piece of clothing that had no financial value whatsoever, and to do as much to it and to the person wearing it to make it something that is going to fool people, is going to con people. We're going to convince you that this is why you need to spend $300, $500 on a t-shirt or a jacket or whatever it is. Look at who's wearing. Just the whole thing was just nonsense. This isn't art. This is deception.
Right. Exactly.
All we're doing is deceiving other people so that we can have money. We're conning, fooling, lying to other people. And I just didn't enjoy it. If I understand it's necessary, I understand how it works. I just chose not to be a part of it. I'm not militant about it should be stopped. I really don't care. I just don't want to be part of that world.
Part of that. So you basically packed your bags and you just ran away. You just went on to become a merchant seaman, right?
I walked. I didn't run.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yes, I did. I did a few other things. I worked on a construction site in North America, and then eventually I joined the Merchant Marine, and I went to sea, which was probably the most life-changing experience that I've had
Hmm.
joining a ship and going to sea for a year. It was so completely different from anything that I'd ever done.
Right.
This was real work with real people and real danger.
And you have done some other odd jobs as well.
Oh yeah, I've done lots of odd
Lots of-
jobs. It's, there's so many different things that I've done, from making donuts at 4 o'clock in the morning to going door to door, selling things in San Francisco. I've done so many different odd jobs. And, in a lot of cases, they're kind of equally as fulfilling as
Right.
taking fashion
Any art form.
photographs.
Yeah.
Really, it's kind of, would I rather work on a ship or be taking fashion pictures every day? I'd work on the ship. Absolutely.
Right. So while you were doing, please
would I
carry
rather be doing portraits of my friends or street photography,
right,
than be on a ship? Oh no, you can keep the ship. I'd rather do the pictures that I want to take. But if I can't do that, any other job is same as any other. It makes no difference.
Completely true. So while you were doing these odd jobs, were you really aware of the fact that what exactly do you want to do? What kind of photography you wanted to do? You had no idea about that?
No, not at all. I knew the photography that I liked. The photography that I liked was, the William Klein kind of photography. I liked Abaddon, I liked Irving Penn, there was a lot of photographers that I liked, but I never imagined that I'd be able to do that kind of photography because I'd been trained to do studio photography. I'd been trained to do beauty photography. I'd been trained to do advertising, and it's a very closed garden that you work in. It's pretty much every day is technically the same. Pretty much. And it's a world where you have 12 people around you doing hair and makeup and clothes and set building. And all you're literally doing is pressing the shutter and saying something ridiculous to a model.
Right. So basically there was no scope for creativity.
When you come out of that world and you look at your hero's photography, you kind of think, oh no, I can't do that. I need a studio to do that. I need
Right.
I need hairdressers and makeup to do that. It's like you don't need any of that stuff. Just you, a camera, and whoever you're photographing.
Right. So basically there was no scope for creativity and fun at all. It was just like boring work that you have to continuously do day in and day out, right?
It can be, yeah. I mean, you're surrounded by people who think they're creating art.
Right.
But you're not.
So basically, what do you think? Like
propaganda for a clothing company or
true, exactly. Company. Yeah, totally. Yeah,
that's what you're doing.
So basically,
I couldn't tell you what art is. I don't know what art is, but I know what it's not.
Right.
It's not commercial photography.
Yeah, exactly. So do you think things has like changed now in fashion industry, or do you think like things are exactly the same that they used to be like at your in your time?
No, I think that the game of fashion photography has been cleaned up a lot.
Right.
I think models get treated better than they did in the past. There are more people looking out for their welfare now. I think enough stories have gone around about what can happen to people in that world. Have made the people who run it make some choices. Which I think is great. But without all of that, I still find that world, it doesn't interest me. It interested me much more when I was 22, 23.
Right.
A lot of time's gone by since then. It's not something that interests me. So whether the world has become better, probably better than when I did it.
Yes.
But exactly. I'm sure the people who are doing it now have a lot of things to complain about. So
sure.
I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? So basically, do you seriously believe that? Because this is something that I totally believe in. So that's why I wanted to ask you that the commercial aspect of photography is actually ruining the artistic photography. Do you think like that?
I don't know whether it's ruining it or not. It's just that there are different types of photography, aren't they? Right. One is a component of an industry,
right,
which is it's a component of capitalism. We need photography in order to sell you things.
Yeah.
There's other types of photography, for example, street photography, that for all intents and purposes have no financial value whatsoever. Most of the time.
Right.
Most of the time they have no financial value. There's a possibility the photographer could sell a print. If they're lucky, it might end up on an album cover. Not that they have album covers anymore, but it could get used for something. But chances are no money's going to be made out of a street photography. Even a good street photograph, money's not going to be made out of it. And I think once you take the money out of it,
there's a lot of fun in it.
Your reasoning and your results become very different from when there's money involved. Right.
And that's why you have to do other jobs as well, just to financially support yourself.
No, absolutely. And when friends approach me to do little photographic projects, even if it might involve a fashion item they could be selling, or it could be an actor friend who wants to be promoted, I understand. I'm doing the same thing that I did in the past, but I'm doing it for my friends. I'm doing it for people that I love, that I like, care about. I'm not doing it just for the money, but absolutely without the money, I'd be homeless. So I'll still do little advertising jobs here and there. But they are. I choose not to go looking for those things. When they arrive on the doorstep, my agent and I have a look and say, "Do we want to do this?" And 9 times out of 10, it's like, "No, not really." But then other things come up for absolutely no money where we go, "Yeah, let's do it. Maybe we could get something good out of this."
Right.
For us, our objective is just to get good pictures, really.
Because artistic endeavors are also important, right? Financials are important, but what you actually want to do, what you actually want to create, those things are.
I don't know. For me, the financial side of things is a bottomless pit for me. If you give me £1,000, then tomorrow I want 2.
Right. It'll always be less.
The day after I want 4.
Right.
Then I want 8. Then I want this car. Then I want the bigger house. Then I want my own yacht.
Exactly.
Then I want my own island. Then I want to buy Twitter.
And there's no end to it. There's no end to it.
For me, there's not. I don't know about
same here.
Some people could be happy saying, yes, $1 million is enough for me.
Right.
But not for me. I have no respect for money. No respect for money at all, really. It's just, yeah, let's buy that. Yeah, let's spend that. And money goes. So in order to maintain that disrespect for money, I need to be making lots of money.
Yeah, sure.
And there's no way. It would be lose-lose for me. Absolutely.
It's amazing to see like in how many ways our thinking is like same. I also like think that way. And I want to ask you about this, unique style. How important is it to develop your own distinct style in photography?
How important is it? Well, if you look at maybe 90% of the pictures on Instagram,
yes,
you've seen them all before.
Exactly.
So there's no individuality in 90% of the pictures.
Right.
They're just good copies of other pictures.
Right.
Which is fine. A lot of people are concerned with getting things technically right. I want to technically copy this ugly fashion photograph or this ugly, this beauty picture. I'm going to make a copy of it and pretend I'm a genius. It's like, no, that picture's 20 years old, but go ahead. If you have the camera, the light, the studio, the girl, do it if you want to. That's kind of fine. But you find that kind of 10% of the things that you find on Instagram are very different. The things that I enjoy the most, the photographers I enjoy the most, are the young ones who have absolutely no idea how their camera works.
Because there is this originality or curiosity.
No, I think it's a naivety.
Naivety and curiosity. There is curiosity.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't really know how the camera works.
Right.
Sometimes they make mistakes and the picture is blurred. But you look at it after 45 years of experience and I go, wow.
Right.
And I know it was a mistake, but I kind of think my whole career has been built on mistakes.
Exactly.
My whole catalogue of pictures is built on me making a mistake and embracing the mistake rather than rejecting it.
Right.
And I think it's really important when you're taking a photograph to not be too connected to your outcome.
Right.
Do not be too gripped into how this picture must end. Because if it doesn't go the way you want it to go, it's going to start going another way. Go with it. Try it. See what happens, because you'll probably get something better than your original idea.
True. Like they say, go with the flow.
Yes, but I think that in every situation where you're taking a photograph, even, I say this as an atheist, but I think you have to leave space for the hand of God.
True. You have to leave something like for magic to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Magic, hand of God, whatever.
Like rationality is important. But you have to like leave some room for irrationality too.
Absolutely, you do, and that's where the magic comes. That's where you get great pictures in that little space there.
Right.
And I see that much more in young photographers with no experience, young photographers who haven't been beaten down by the pain of making mistakes.
Yeah.
I think you know as well as I do that sometimes we come home, we put a card into the computer and we have a look and we're just,
right.
I'm so terrible. What am I going to do? This doesn't look the way I wanted it to do. And young kids put a card in the machine and they kind of go, oh, wow, it's exposed. It came out. It's in focus. Oh, cool. And it's like for us, we're kind of looking for professional details that we made mistakes with. For these young kids, they're not looking for that. They're just looking for a spark of magic. They're just looking for something that works.
Exactly.
And occasionally you find those, and they're the ones that I enjoy the most. They're the ones that inspire me. I'm rarely inspired by my contemporaries or the things that I see online at the moment, with the exception of young people who've just picked up a camera and said, I'm a photographer. Let's see what happens. That excites me.
Because sometimes like people like us, we have this, we have already imagined the image that we want to take.
Absolutely.
But with these people, these naive and these kids who are just starting, they don't have a clear picture of what they want to achieve. No, they just want to play. There is this playfulness.
And I think that's really important. If you look musically at rock and roll in the 20th century, the best rock and roll was by kids who knew how to play 3 chords or 4 chords. That was it. They didn't really know what they're doing, but their naivety gave them a power and a magic that inspired everyone around them.
Right, exactly.
And I think we need to find the same thing in young photographers, the ones who can play, a couple of chords, but excite you with those few chords. Because as time goes by and you learn more about photography and how it works and you see other people's pictures, it can become quite overwhelming.
Right, exactly.
I think the path becomes more and more narrow the longer you take pictures. It becomes harder to be creative. It becomes harder to produce the kind of things that you want to produce.
Right, exactly.
Whereas in the beginning, everything's a possibility. I have young students now who have these ridiculous ideas that they want to do. They want I want to build a set in the park. And it's like, okay. It's like, yeah, and I found these guys and they're going to light it at night. And it's like, oh, okay, fine. The reality of all of that is you probably don't need to build a set and use lights at night in the park to get the picture you want. There's probably another way you could do it.
Right.
But kids believe
they just want to do it.
Yeah, and they just want to go ahead and do it. And very often I'll say this big production is going to destroy you for a month. It's not going to get you what you want. So while you're shooting this big project, be sure to take little pictures
here and there,
because that's where you'll find the magical picture. The big production is something that takes years of experience to pull off.
Exactly.
Just because you have the idea doesn't mean you're going to pull it off.
True. Very true. Yes, exactly.
So make sure that you photograph around your original idea and be prepared for it to be completely different. When I was 17, I did a big photo shoot that involved 13 people and 20 strobe lights in a studio.
Oh God.
5 hairdressers, 2 makeup artists. This was, just people that I knew, because I had this plan to photograph a recreation of the Last Supper.
Okay. Right.
But with guys with rock and roll haircuts. I thought it would be fun.
Right.
The whole thing was a disaster. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no experience. It was way too many people. Everyone was older than me, and I was a bit terrified. But the little photographs that I took around while it was happening are the things that saved it for me. The actual picture of everybody sitting around the table was a complete and utter disaster. It was poorly exposed, out of focus. It was dreadful because I was just terrified. So I understand why young people think they can do anything. And, I encourage them to give it a try.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And do you think social media is killing that fun in a way? What do you think about that?
The social media killing that fun?
Because
I don't think so. No, people on social media seem to be having lots of fun. From what I can see, people are running around with their mobile phones, taking pictures and making little videos, and they seem to be having lots of fun. So I don't know if the fun stopped. I find possibly a bit of the creativity might have slipped away. Right?
Because people focus too much about the engagement part, how many likes and followers they're getting. Do you think that happens?
Because it's monetized.
Right.
It's about money.
Right. Exactly.
You go on to this generation doesn't have to leave their house. If they can come up with a good enough idea that's going to make you sit in front of your telephone for 10, 15 minutes, or even just 5 minutes and be entertained by something stupid somebody's doing, they're going to make money out of it. So, it's a different mentality now for young people.
Right.
They don't have to go to work. They don't have to join a company. They don't have to do the things that maybe our generation or our parents' generation took for granted. They don't have to do that. There's a part of me that is quite envious of them. If I was 17, the idea of doing that seems quite exciting to me.
The idea of working from your own comfort.
Yeah, exactly. Just doing your own thing, having your own little TV station coming out of your house. It seems like fun. There's a bunch of people that I see on the internet who make interesting content that I can kind of watch. But, that is very separate from the kind of artistic creativity that we're talking about. They're being very creative in the ideas that they come up with, but they're not what we would consider to be art. They're what we would consider to be pretty much commerce, pretty much advertising. It's kind of, we're going to do something stupid and we're going to make you like us, and you're going to make sure that our advertising gives us money. And we know that, and it's not they're pretending to do it for the love of us. They're doing it because it's the thing to do. It's okay. But it has nothing to do with creativity in our sense of creativity as photographers. That's a different thing. It's no better or no worse, but they're very different things. Our type of creativity involves us being self-obsessed and is this good enough? And is this creative? Am I an artist? Will I be in a gallery? Will people remember me?
Exactly.
There was somebody who sticks a firework up their ass and shoots it in a baseball bat. They're being creative because they're making money, but it's not quite the same thing as a portrait is for us. We are a little bit too serious about our type of artistry, I think, sometimes. Right,
exactly. I can totally understand that.
I am, absolutely. I take artistry a bit too seriously sometimes.
Same here.
So, artistic photographs are no different from poems or no different from any other form of creativity.
True.
We just like photographs.
Poetry
is, I find, a bit difficult. But, we choose.
I do poetry sometimes in like Hindi, in my own language. I write them.
Really?
I write them. Not in English, but Hindi, yes. Every now and then I write.
Who do you write poems to?
Yeah. To the love of my life, I can say.
Okay, love poems, indie love poems. That sounds good.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. And anything that happens around me, I just love, writing about them and things like stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah. Talking about this artistic part, I was like reading, I don't know, a blog or something, but there's this debate in art field that is photography an art form? What's your take on that? Is photography art or it is not art? Because painters and people like that, they don't believe that photography is an art form, just because photography doesn't have the exclusivity of a painting. You can recreate an image as many times as you can.
What if it wasn't recreated? What if you just made one?
Right.
You just made one picture, one print, that's it. Would that suddenly make it art? Because the financial benefits become less, or the exclusivity becomes higher. None of this has anything to do with art. This has all to do with business.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
You're saying a photograph isn't art because it can be reproduced. Is a film art?
Because it can,
it can be totally reproduced
again and again. Yes,
it's the same thing. I don't know. It depends how it's a very personal choice. Is photography art or not art? I've seen some pictures which are the highest art I've ever seen. I've seen photographs which are better arts than anything I've seen on canvas or sculpted or anything else. Absolutely. Right. Is all photography art? Absolutely not. Is all painting art? No.
Absolutely not.
Art is art.
Art is art. Yes.
If that picture, if you think that picture is full of artistic value, then it's artistic. There aren't a set of rules around these things.
And what basically do you think are those artistic value? How do you define it? Like, I'm really confused. I just want to understand. I just want to understand about these things. What do you think? What's your take on that?
I think for me, it's when a piece of work goes beyond what is on the canvas or the paper. When it takes me to another place, when it answers a question that I've been asking for a long time, when it gives me some clarity about my life or about things around me, then that's not just information. It's more than information. It becomes something that is far more complicated and far more powerful and far more important. And as we've chosen to call things art or craft,
right,
I always find quite interesting what you would put in a list of crafts.
Yes.
You put in a list of arts. Are you an artist or a craftsman? I know 100 artists who call themselves artists with absolutely no talent whatsoever. I know craftsmen who are the most talented people and the most creative people that I've ever met.
Right.
If you're baking bread and there's an artisanal bakery, is that bread artistic? I don't know whether it is or not, if it's a loaf of bread.
Right.
But what goes into making that bread is pretty creative. How close is creativity to art? At some point, there's a line where the two meet.
Right.
But, we can either decide via our governments where that line is, or it can be a personal choice. For me, it's a personal choice.
Yes, totally understand that.
I find for things that fascinate me, I find science fascinating. I've actually only paid any interest to science in the last 10, 15 years.
Right.
Because more and more content around me is concerning mathematics, concerning engineering, concerning physics, things that I've always been completely afraid of. And now when I look at these things and I look at what went into finding these things out,
right,
I kind of think, oh, you can have the badge that says artist, and I'll just be some guy with a camera. Sorry, what I do is nothing compared to you.
Yes. Amazing.
So comparing art to engineering for me is, very easy to do. But would painters say that engineering is art? No, they wouldn't, because photography is not even art.
Right.
So it's all subjective. Let artists, it's not even a debate. The debate is photography art. It's like the debate between film and digital. It's like, shut up.
Right.
Really? Do you want to have that one? Do you want to have that argument? Is that the hill you want to die on, whether photography is art or not?
Yeah.
Because what if everybody votes that it's not? Are you going to stop?
Exactly. That's the most important question. Yes.
Are you going to stop because everybody says, oh, no, it's not art, it's craft?
No, not at all.
Exactly. So it's an unimportant argument, I think.
Okay.
Really. If you take a picture and somebody gets some artistic gratification from it, I guess it's art to that person.
Exactly.
So
I can totally relate to whatever that you're saying. It's really amazing. Like the way you talked about like science and mathematics, these things used to haunt me back then when I was in school. But now when I study about like cosmos and universe, these things really excites me.
Me too.
I don't know how suddenly.
I wish I'd paid more attention when I was at school. I wish I'd been more inspired.
Yeah.
To follow those things.
Exactly. Same here. So there's this thing that I wanted to ask you, that when it comes to image, when it comes to a photograph, do you think storytelling is important, or the aesthetic value is important? Does it have to look good, or does it have to carry any story in the background?
For me, it has to look good. The aesthetic values of the picture are incredibly important, purely for aesthetic reasons. I don't like ugly photography.
Okay.
I just don't. I don't know. Some people do, some people don't. For me, I don't really like it. I like photography that's not necessarily beautiful, but photography that
we can call it surreal sometimes.
Yeah, surrealism is always a strange kind of concept to me.
Okay.
Surrealism. I'm really never understood what surrealism was. I mean, I've looked at Salvador Dali, I've looked at Louis Buñuel, I've looked at all of these things. And yes, I see how it could be unreal. Surreal must mean unreal, but I still don't really understand it. It's just, what is it? Dreams, dreamlike. I don't know. So do pictures have to be dreamlike, surreal? Not necessarily. It's great when they are sometimes. I think that if you go out to take a surreal picture, it stops being surreal because you had the idea to do it.
You have the idea of that. Yeah, exactly.
So it's not surreal.
Right.
Wow, look, if you press the shutter and a picture came out that you'd never seen before.
Exactly.
It's like, wow, that's surreal.
That's surreal, yes.
That's a picture of me in Delhi and I'm in London. Wow, how did that happen?
Right.
That would be surreal. But to kind of go, I'm going to paint clocks hanging from a tree that are dripping because I saw camembert on the table.
Right. Or because I saw something like this in my dream.
Yeah, it's like, that's not surreal because you've already seen it.
Yes,
and you
exactly.
already know what you're going to do. So I don't really understand that concept particularly.
So basically for you, aesthetic is more important when it comes to photographs.
Rather than telling a story, yes.
So you don't like to explain your artwork or something like that?
No, not really. That's your job.
That's the viewer's job. To see and find your own meaning and understanding.
People sometimes get a little annoyed with me because
I can totally understand that.
They feel that they deserve more details.
Right. And people always ask you questions like, what exactly does it, this image mean?
Yeah.
How can you explain it?
I refuse to. I don't.
Right.
There's obviously something there because you made an effort to ask me what it's about. So work it out. I've done my bit.
Right.
I know what it means to me, but what any picture means to me is going to be very different from what it means to you.
It's a subjective matter completely.
If I do a portrait of somebody in this room, for example, then you're just going to see the head.
Right. Yes, exactly.
For me, I've had the whole day of conversation waiting for the person to arrive in the morning, the phone call from my bank to say I've got no money left, the dog running away. You know, a whole bunch of things happen to me on that day.
There are so many emotions in between as well.
When I produced the picture, I could subtitle it with everything that happened to me on that day. That's what this picture means to me. Or I could say, it's up to you.
This is the image and it's up to you how you want to understand it.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever meaning you want to carry out of it.
Exactly. If I can tell you any detail you want to know about the person in the picture, but it's not going to help you understand what I saw. That's all.
Yeah. Then what's the difference? Then what's the difference between art and science? If you want to explain everything.
Exactly. Really.
Right.
Art, creativity doesn't have boundaries to it in the way that science does.
Exactly. But we human, I guess
you can't prove a photograph.
Yeah.
You can't prove what it means or what it doesn't mean. It's impossible.
Right.
So art puts itself in the same category as religion, or it puts itself in the same category as love.
Right. You cannot explain love.
There are no edges to it. There's no sense to it. There's no scientific data to make your way through there. There's nothing.
Right.
So, art, love, religion, they all mean nothing and they mean everything.
I personally believe that with humans, there's this thing that they just want to know answers of everything. I personally do black and white photography. I just wanted to, tell you this. So I got this question so many times. Why exactly you shoot in black and white? What is it? What is the reason?
I like it.
Yeah, simple answer. But people always poke their noses and they always ask why. What is it exactly about black and white photography that you love? You have to explain it. Now I don't have any answer for that.
You probably would have an answer if you had a gun to your head, but you don't need to give one. You don't have to justify what you do. You don't have to explain what you do at all.
Not everything.
Unless you're being paid for it.
Yes, exactly.
You're being paid for it.
And then I'm answerable to them.
You have to justify, you have to fight for black and white.
Yes.
Because they wanted a color picture. You have to fight for this particular model because they wanted somebody else. You have to fight for all of the things that you want because you're being paid for it. And you have to justify why this model, why this studio, why this amount of money. If you're doing it purely for yourself, all of that disappears. So if I'm not being paid, I'm not justifying it to you. You buy a print off me, I'll answer any of your questions.
Right. Exactly. And not everything demands explanation. Not everything have explanation.
So, that's kind of how I feel about that. I choose not to subtitle my pictures. I choose not to put dates, names. I'll credit somebody.
I've seen that. I've seen your work. Yes, totally.
I'll credit people if they're in the picture, if they have a social media account and they want to be credited. It's common courtesy these days.
Right.
But on generally, and I don't really like to do that because sometimes I'll take a picture of somebody and all I want you to know is that image that I took.
Right.
If you click on their Instagram account, you'll see them on the beach with their sister or having a birthday party. And somehow the power of my picture gets diluted by seeing who the real person is. Right. But that's just one of the downsides of.
Right. And let me point out one more thing about your work that I have experienced. And this I have seen with my work as well. I know this is exactly the same. Like I've seen most of your work, portrait work, and in your photography, in your portraits, your models or the faces that you use, they don't laugh, they don't smile. They're like plain. And this is exactly same the way I do it. I can find it in my work as well.
Why do you do that?
What?
Why do you have people not smiling?
I don't know. The same answer. I don't know the explanation.
Okay. For me, I don't trust smiling. I especially don't trust smiling in photographs.
Okay.
If you remember as a child, your auntie would point a camera at you and you'd be there with your brother and they'd be like, smile, smile, act like you're happy. Make this picture look like we have a happy family. It's like, we're not happy. We hate you and you hate us and you're just playing with your camera. I don't want to smile. Smile. And you smile. Yeah. And people smile to make you think that they're happy and they're comfortable. I'm just uncomfortable with smiling in pictures. If somebody smiles in real life or they laugh, then that's natural and I accept that. But if I'm standing 8 inches away from your face with a camera there, you have very little to smile about.
Right.
Very little, especially when I'm shouting at you.
Exactly.
So if you smile for me, I don't believe it. So
it's going to be fake. It's going to be fake.
I don't want people to look unhappy, but I don't particularly want them to be selling a smile to me either.
Right. You just want them to be.
There's a place in between happiness and sadness where most of us live.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly.
Trying to find that place. It's a very thin line between pretending you're happy and being sad, but somewhere there's a place where we're neither. We're just normal.
And most of the time that is the case with us.
That's the place that I'm looking for, if I can get it. But people don't give you that naturally when you put a camera in front of them.
Because they want to do something or the other.
It's almost like having a lie detector on. People become quite nervous and uncomfortable and they perform, they act, and they're conscious about tiny little details. And, can you see my chin? And all of those things that they do prevent you from getting anything that has any authenticity to it.
Right.
Whatsoever. So, for me, sometimes I'll shoot somebody and everything is right, apart from the fact that I couldn't get that little place I wanted to get. I couldn't get that level between an almost emotional purgatory.
Exactly.
Which is kind of what I'm looking for. And sometimes I'll lose a shoot because I couldn't get that. Either they were trying to look like they're in a Brett Walker picture by being serious, which is fake, or they're really nervous and they're trying to control me by smiling, being happy.
Right.
So I prefer there not to be a smile in there particularly. I think of the thousands of pictures I've taken, maybe 2 or 3 have been published with a smile.
I've seen them. I've seen your Flickr account as well. So I've noticed a bit.
Yeah. So, smiling is not something that I aspire towards.
And I guess with me, it is like, it comes from my own sensibilities as well. I'm not a very extroverted kind of a person, very introverted, and I, keep myself in my own space. So I guess that comes from my own sensibilities and from my own nature as well.
No, absolutely. I think that everything that we do with the camera comes from that.
Right.
Everything honest we do with the camera comes from that.
Exactly.
I think when you come into photography these days, you come in with the idea, with a whole world of photography to compare yourself against.
Right.
And to copy, which is what we all do. I still copy people's work to this day. I'm just so bad at copying, nobody knows. But I copy people's pictures to this day. I still do. We all steal. Anyone who says they don't is not being very honest.
Right.
So it's. I think that when you're coming into this world now, there's something there's a sense of you have to be aggressive to succeed in modern photography. Aggressive in your images, aggressive in the way that you approach trying to get people to follow you, aggressive in the way that just the whole thing is kind of quite aggressive. And what I find is that a lot of people who take great pictures are not very aggressive. They're much more sensitive.
Right.
And that sensitivity, it finds it very difficult to float to the top when there's so much work around. It's the powerful wham, bam, bright colors, Chinese girl, black guy.
Right.
All of the kind of like powerful wide angle, kind of in your face. This is the world. This is the 21st century. This is how it's going to be. And I think that there's a degree of sensitivity that's got lost.
Right.
Because it's so subtle and because it's so nuanced that that kind of sensitivity isn't there anymore. And when you talk about your own personal reasons for not having smiles in your pictures, I'm sure that's a lot to do with you kind of not smiling that much when you were a boy.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
I'm pretty sure that kind of you weren't the most popular kid in your classroom.
Yeah, sure.
I certainly wasn't. And I silently carried a lot of sadness with me as a bullied child, as not the smartest child in my school, as just being kind of average and not very popular.
Right.
As life moved on, situations changed slightly, but that initial pain and discomfort, that scar still stays. And when I can find an opportunity to express that
in my
emotion,
work, it comes out.
Then I do it. I take a lot of pictures of kids. Generally kids in the street, or I've got some people that I photographed from the ages of 5 up until 15 or 16. And there's something about kids when I kind of see them in the street and I take a picture from a distance. It's because these 2 7-year-old boys walking towards me remind me of the 2 7-year-old boys I was terrified of on my way home from school.
Exactly. Yes. Right.
I'm not photographing children. When I'm photographing children, I am a child.
Right. Exactly.
Seeing these kids who, when I was 6 or 7-year-old, seemed like Goliath. He seemed like Godzilla to me. Just little details on children that remind you of being a child, remind you of all of those things that you saw that you never spoke about when you were a child.
Right.
You just observed and you took in. You didn't know what you were seeing or what it was, but it made you feel a bit uncomfortable, or it made you feel a little bit sad, or it made you feel some emotion or other, but not something that you could explain as a child. But as you get older and you have more tools in order to express yourself,
right.
It's those early things that you want to somehow put into a photograph. When I did fashion photography, there was no room for that kind of emotion in a photograph at all. But when I stopped taking photographs and I went to sea and I worked on construction sites and I did other things, and then I picked up photography again, thanks to digital.
Right.
2004, I think it was, more or less. Then suddenly there'd been such a gap between my fashion days and the new type of photography that I could do, that the work that I did, it allowed, the pictures that I took allowed me to hold on to those emotions when I was younger.
Right.
I didn't do it knowingly. It was just subconsciously I'd go, oh, that kid over there, click. And then I'd get home and it'd be like, why did you take that picture? And it's kind of, oh, yeah, he reminds you of that boy who bullied you.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, cool. And it's not a very dated picture. He doesn't have Nikes on or a mobile phone or a shopping bag. It's kind of, it could be from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Hey, it could be, it's hard to date this picture. Let's go for it. It works. But it's not a conscious thing. It's always an after the fact thing. I'll go out shooting and I'll think, maybe there's a picture there. Maybe there's a picture there. A couple of frames. And you get home and you kind of see most of it's garbage. But one frame, you think, oh, wow, yeah.
Exactly, right.
Picture because it kind of reminded me of something. Now I know what it is. It's that cousin who came over who I was afraid of, or, somebody's sister who I liked when I was 10. Whatever it is. It's
yes.
Things that you find afterwards. And what I mean about modern photography being more aggressive these days is that it's very much a competition now. who can get the most views, who
Right.
can get the best contracts, who can get the best jobs, who can photograph the most famous actress, actor, or whatever it is.
Right.
And, that's fine. That's a world that, some people aspire to, and I wish them the best of luck. But for the kind of pictures that I do, it has nothing to do with that world. And the kind of pictures that I do have very little to do with making money, particularly.
Wow. Amazing. So this is like, I'm so connected to you. Like, in future, if somebody in future will ask me why I do the kind of work that I do, I will for sure, send this interview to them and I'll ask them to listen to what Brett is saying, because you have explained it. You have explained it like very good. You've nailed it.
I'm glad you're happy.
Thank you so much. And so there's this personal question that I wanted to ask you: how to be true to yourself, how to be authentic and in sync with your true self. Be it in life, be it in work.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. I lie to myself and I con myself into believing that I'm doing that. But if you looked a little closer at my life, I'm a bit of a hypocrite, really. I'm not as, I don't live as true to my ideals as I would like to. So, I don't know how you do it, but if anybody does, please give me a shout and let me know.
Sure.
Really, I couldn't answer that question, honestly.
No problem at all. So coming back to the photography part, so we all talk about good images, right? We all have like our own explanations of good images, good photographs. But how would Brett define a bad photograph?
A bad
photograph. If you think there is something like bad photograph or good photographs.
Oh, bad photograph. That's a really difficult question.
Okay, no problem.
Because there's bad photographs on a technical level,
right?
Which I don't necessarily believe is a good enough reason to call something bad. I've seen, if you look behind me on here, all of these pictures that are up here were printed on a cheap copy machine to stick on my wall. So technically, these are nothing like what the artist wanted. This is a cheap Xerox photocopy on a piece of thin paper.
Right.
But so technically, all of the technical details have gone, but the pictures still look great because they're great pictures.
Right.
They're taken by other people. They're not my pictures. They're other people's pictures. But quality-wise, even though they're printed so badly, they still look fantastic. So I don't really care about quality. For me, the worst pictures are the lazy ones. The ones where somebody kind of looks all right and somebody's kind of thinks they know what they're doing with a camera, and they're going to try and copy this picture of a girl in a sari dancing in front of a waterfall.
Right.
And the exposure's right and it's in focus, but anybody who's seen the classic girl dancing in front of water in a sari knows that there is one great example of this genre.
Right.
And from there on, they become worse and worse and worse and worse.
Right.
So for me, I'll look at it and I'll think, it's a bit shit. But it depends. If a lot of the worst photography that I see is wedding photography.
Right.
I think wedding photography upsets me the most.
Totally. I strongly believe that as well.
I don't know why. I have no interest in marriages. I have no interest in wedding photography. But I can look at wedding photographs and think, I'm going to vomit. Everything about this is just so disgusting.
Right.
Everything, the filters, the color correction, the lighting, the nearly on one knee, just everything about them I find really offensive.
I can totally relate to that. When I was starting
I'm sure the people in the pictures love them. I'm sure they do, but
Can't say about them.
as an observer, I find them offensive.
Right. When I was starting photography, I remember that I was working with this photographer. There's this photographer in India who's like amazing wedding photographer. So I started my apprenticeship with him. But within 3 months, I just ran away. I hated that.
I'm sure.
It was so boring and so fake, and everything was so staged.
Have you ever photographed a wedding?
I have done it. I photographed a wedding. I've done like pre-weddings as well.
I've done 2 in my life. One I did in Tokyo when I was about 23, and it was for a young Japanese mafia guy, and his name was Akira. The project was Akira's wedding, and we had to go to this hotel on the seashore outside of Tokyo, and it was like, yeah, Brett's going to do it, and they paid me lots of money. And when you're doing weddings, you need to know who everybody is, who is the uncle, who is the auntie, who is the bride's mother, etc., etc. Okay, I hadn't been in Tokyo for very long taking pictures. And everybody was dressed exactly the same at the wedding. And I kept forgetting who the groom was, because he kind of looked like his brothers and he kind of looked like everybody else. This was the time when I was starting to get my head around the different shapes of Japanese heads and faces.
Right.
It takes you a while.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. I spent possibly a month going through the pictures before I sent them, crying to myself.
Yes.
Just crying, because you can look at pictures and say, that's a cool picture, but it's, for you as a photographer, that's a cool picture. But for this couple who are getting married once in their life in this situation for hundreds and thousands of pounds, you can't make a mistake.
Right.
You just can't. There is no room for mistakes. And I made hundreds of mistakes. I just thought it was going to be easy. I just got click, click. And it was a nightmare. And I swore I'd never do it again. But then a friend of mine, another photographer, he got married a few years ago, and said, just do whatever you want. Just take some snaps and kind of see what happens. And me coming down the registry office steps. And I said no for 6 months, and eventually he talked me into it. I got the picture coming down the stairs. It's the classic bride laughing, husband giggling, confetti, did it in black and white. And I thought, okay, you got away with it. Never do this again now. You've proved yourself. You can do a wedding picture. They still use this picture. It hangs in their house. And I actually like it. I'm not taking the risk again.
And boy, you hated that. You hated that experience, right?
Absolutely. It's terrifying. There's so much at stake. It's not just money.
Right.
There's so much at stake. Why somebody would do that every Saturday as a job, I have no idea. The only thing that I'm grateful to wedding photographers for is that they're the ones who make the real decisions about the direction cameras are going in. They're the most powerful photographers in the world.
Right.
Nikon, Canon, Sony. Who do they listen to? Wedding photographers.
Right.
Wedding photographers come across the most problems. If you have a woman in a white dress coming out of a church on a sunny day, your digital camera's got to be able to pick up every shade of white in that dress.
Right.
And they're the ones who go to the big camera companies and saying, this is what we need. This is what we need.
So basically, technically, they are very sound.
Oh, absolutely. And they have to be. And I think, I think that they deserve a lot of respect, but I think their pictures are absolutely disgusting. They're the worst pictures I've ever seen. It's a world that thankfully I'm not part of, so it's kind of okay.
Yeah. That was hilarious experience of yours. Only last question that I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
What is the role of philosophy in photography? Like, are you interested in philosophy? Do you study? Do you read about these things?
What is the role of philosophy in photography?
Right.
I think personal philosophy plays a large role in anyone's photography. I think philosophy as a whole has no place and has nothing to do with photography. I don't think that the works of, Kant or the works of Nietzsche or any philosopher have any relation to my photography whatsoever. You keep your ideas to yourself. I don't care about you.
Right,
but my own personal philosophy, whatever that is, as broken as my own philosophy is, as flawed as my own philosophy is, that plays a huge part in my work, as your philosophy does in yours. But philosophy as a branch of science, philosophy as a concept, has nothing to do with my photography, or yours necessarily. It's our own personal philosophies that make the difference there, not a general one.
Nice, amazing. So I think that's it.
Okay,
for this interview. Thank you so much for.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's been great.
I loved it.
Okay, perfect. Fantastic. That's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed speaking to you.
Thank you so much, mate. Thank you so much. I really loved speaking to you. And thank you so much.
Okay, you take care. I'll see you soon.
Take care, buddy. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.